What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Dave Savage sitting down with Futurist Steve Brown, the author of the Innovation Ultimatum. What's up, brother?
Great to see you again, Dave. It's been a while.
It has been a while. You know, we don't get to see each other as much now that we're not traveling and sharing stages together in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's really nice to see you always, and it's just there's something very different. You know, the barrier between you as you look at each other through a screen, as we all are these days, versus being able to have a fist bump and a hug and hey man, how you doing, and share a beer together, which is always nice.
I know. I am looking forward to getting back on the other side of that. And then we've recently had a new lockdown here. I'm in Lake Oswego, Oregon, and Steve is in Portland, Oregon, and I know it's like we can't even go and meet at a bar now. Like we could have last week, but at least for a couple more weeks. So guys, when it comes to planning for 2021 and just thinking about the future, I'm always going to try to tell Steve, like, what's going to happen next year? And he's always going to go, Dave, I don't know, but I do know some trends over the next 5 or 10 years. So we're going to talk about what innovations are taking place. Also try to share, if you're an innovator, if you're one of those folks that likes to be ahead of the game and a leader as it pertains to technology and social trends, we're going to just talk about how to look at COVID from an innovator's perspective. And then I've got some specific questions for you, Steve. If you're watching this live in our Facebook group and you have questions for one of America's top futurists, one of the top speakers and leaders when it comes to innovation, put them in chat, put them in, if you're watching this in YouTube, put them down below. If you're watching this on Facebook, put them in comments. So Steve, how should we be looking at COVID? How do you advise your clients to look at what's happening in today's world?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a difficult time. And if you're in the mortgage industry, you're probably processing lots of refis because rates are down, and rates are down because things in the economy have not been great. Stock market's up, the economy is in trouble. And we'll see how that pans out in the coming year. But it's a difficult time for a lot of people. And so I'm always looking for the silver linings in things and ways to look for opportunity in a dark time. And if you look back at, World War II, which was a very difficult time, extreme circumstances for many people, lots of innovation came out of that time. Pressurized cabins and radar for the modern aircraft industry that we have. Penicillin being deployed at scale. First time happened was the Normandy landings. So there are lots of things that happen out of necessity. So the way I've encouraged people to think about this time is to look for the opportunity in it. Yes, it's difficult, but look for the opportunity and use it as a pressure test for your business to help you find areas where you could be more resilient, where you could shore up some parts of the business, some business processes, some of the ways that you operate and serve customers. So I use 3 lenses to think about it. First this is the great reflection. Nature sent us all to our rooms to think about what we've done for a bit. And it's been clear that society, our businesses, and our own personal lives are more fragile than perhaps we thought they were. So use this as a time to look for that fragility and to build our lives and our businesses to be better. And hopefully that'll make our society better in part as well. Second lens to look at it through is thinking about this as the great defrosting. What do I mean by that? Systems, businesses, industries can be frozen in place for a variety of reasons. Could be regulation. I mean, the mortgage industry in part is stuck the way it is because of regulation that's out there. Healthcare is firmly stuck in place because of regulation. It had to be relaxed so that we can now do telehealth. Telehealth calls this year. Last year, there was like 50,000 telehealth calls in America. We're on track for a billion with a B, telehealth calls in 2020.
Whoa.
Because regulation shifted and made that possible. And because out of need, people now want to go and talk to their doctors. And more than half of doctor visits now are telehealth visits. After this time is over, we're not going to go back to the way things were. People will still want to have the convenience of a telehealth visit for at least some of their ailments. It just makes more sense. It's way more efficient. So what I mean by the great defrosting is that systems which were frozen in place because of regulation, tradition, think education, complacency, just sheer momentum. They are changing. They're unfreezing those systems. And the question is, what shape will they refreeze into once COVID is in the rearview mirror? So if you're a change agent, this is a great time to create some noise and try and drive change, because there is this fluidity in the system. And then the final lens to look it through is as the great acceleration. And there aren't any clients that I'm working with that aren't coming to me and saying, here's my 2025 plan. How can I do it next year? Automation efforts, digital transformation efforts, creating digital customer journeys, digital employee experiences, planning for the future of remote and anywhere work. All these businesses are accelerating plans that were sort of a vague thought for 5 or 10 years out, and now they want to do them this year or next year. So those are the 3 lenses: the great acceleration, the great reflection, and the great defrosting. How will you use that to find opportunity in your business?
Wow. I mean, we can just end right now. And I just took some amazing notes. I love that concept of how can I hit my 2025 goal by the end of 2021 and just accelerate success. I interviewed a top loan officer a few weeks ago who closed 100 loans in a single month. And he had talked about how the time it used to take him to build trust, to have a consultation, and to deliver a real good consultative thing was more than 30 minutes. It was 30 minutes to an hour. And through the combination and the use of technology, giving the family a link, getting more information, using Mortgage Coach to create advice, using Zoom sometimes not, he could literally do what he took in 45 minutes and an hour in 10 minutes. And he felt like it was even more value for the consumer and even more convenience for the consumer. And he had, he closed 100 loans in a single month.
Well, and
it was,
the thing is, consumers, as nice as you may be as a loan officer, and my loan officer is a very nice man. I really like him on a personal level, as well as the fact that he got me a great deal, great percentage. We've got stuff to do. We don't want to spend time with you that we don't want to have to spend. So if I can find a mortgage and make it happen in 10 minutes with you versus 45 minutes or an hour, great. I don't feel like you're slighting me on service in the least bit, so long as I'm still getting a great experience. I think that's what all businesses need to remember, is interacting with you is actually a burden on us as consumers. So as simple as you can make that experience, but still giving us the feeling like we got value for money and that we are making the right decision, then you're golden.
So guys, I love to bring the community in. I just saw that Glenn Bill, who's one of America's top real estate agents out of Indianapolis, just weighed in and said, "Hi guys, what's up, Glenn? If you have questions for Steve, I'd love to know," because Glenn's one of those guys that has a great attitude. He's always innovating. I'm sure he's turning whatever's happening in today's market into not just a huge opportunity today, but a scalable opportunity. He's adopting new processes, new systems, so that post-COVID he's going to kill it. So Glenn, if you have questions, let me know. Also, Steve would be a great interview for your podcast. He has definitely got an amazing attitude. So if you want me to make an introduction, let me know. What are some other things that I have some questions I'm going to put you on the spot with that I haven't even told him what they are yet. We're just going to see how he jumps on them. But what are some other just big concepts, big things that we should be thinking about?
Well, I think in general, companies are wrestling with, what does the post-COVID world look like? We're not going back to January 2020 ever again. With a lot of these experiences, the genie is out of the bottle and there's no putting it back in. For example, I mentioned telehealth. We're not going to go back to there being only 50,000 telehealth visits in 2021. There's going to be more and more and more, because it's just a convenient way to do things. So thinking about not just what your post-COVID reality is, but what your clients' post-COVID reality is, what your suppliers' post-COVID reality is, how you will interact with them differently. That's one thing to think about. Second is, how do you drive innovation into everything that you do? And that is everything from the product or service or experience that you deliver. How do you bring innovation into your offering? To what are the channels that you use to reach your customers? How could you create new channels that give you access to new markets and new customers, and to talk and to reach them in new ways and deliver service in new ways? How do you elevate your employees? How do you use technology not to automate away the human talent in your organization, but to elevate them, to support that, so that not only can they get more done in a day, but they can be more creative, more intuitive, um, uh, make better quality decisions as they go through their day. How do you streamline your operations to make it more efficient and effective? And then finally, are there new business models? Are there new revenue streams you could tap into using innovation? Now, that's not always the case in every industry, but those are the 5 things that I'm advising my clients on: is offering, channels, employee experience, streamline operations, and then business models and revenue streams. So
I
be
love that.
thinking about those, and uh, think about how you are going to deliver, a joined up, comprehensive digital customer experience, as digital as you can in the future. And then also, how do you deliver a full digital employee experience so that all of your employees can work for you from wherever they want?
Yeah, no doubt. I was looking on your Facebook page. I follow you on social media and all channels, but I had noticed an article where Bill Gates said that he thought that 50% of business travel is gone post-COVID, like evaporated. Uh, that's pretty mind-boggling. I mean, I knew a lot would be gone post-COVID, and if you probably would have asked me, I probably would have said 30% is evaporated, because there's going to be a higher standard to, like, when do we travel, when do we get on Zoom.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that? And then what are some of the ripple effect that we can look at for things like that and changes in the world?
Well, the world of work is certainly changing, and figuring out what work looks like and feels like next year and for the next 5 to 10 years is something I spend a lot of time working on, thinking on, and working with my clients on. Um, there is a lot of debate, but it seems like we're not going to get rid of offices. I think we will still be coming together physically, although some organizations may go fully remote, which I would say is sort of anywhere work. We can talk about the difference between remote work and anywhere work. And for cost reasons, I think we will see a diminishment in business travel. That's certainly what I'm hearing from people who run airports in this country, is that they expect business air travel to drop significantly. The consequence of that may be that for some airports, particularly smaller airports, which have routes on them which are there to serve big businesses that are in those cities, that are linking with other hubs of those businesses. There is a big company here in town in Portland. There is a route from Portland to Amsterdam because they also have a big office in Europe in Amsterdam. It's unclear whether that route will survive because there may not be enough business class passengers to subsidize all the people in the back of the bus. So we may see routes disappear, which would be very sad for some hubs. And we may see the price of air travel for the rest of us who are back in coach go up, because there are now no longer as many people in business subsidizing those seats.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. It's
Yeah.
just a question of how dramatic and does it impact your life. What about some other things? Because Glenn's a realtor, we're mortgage, but we're in housing, and as you said, this has been a big accelerator. And now that people are working from home, I am seeing loan officers move into other states, into other cities, and
Yeah.
still like, hey, I've got a team, but I really want to live here for lifestyle reasons. And because they can telecommute, I'm seeing that happen all over the place. But when will 5G make a meaningful impact on real estate? Like for example, my mom lives outside of Ashland, Oregon, and it's a bad connection. And I'd go see her more often and I'd spend more time there if I could do a Zoom call from there. But when will 5G come in, or SpaceX come in and really make a meaningful change in terms of quality internet and open up more real estate for virtual workers?
Yeah, so 5G is rolling. It's being built out now. It's typically building out a new cell network, even though it's layered on top of the last 4G network. It's a 2 to 5 year process, and we are, 18 months into that. Depending on which city you're in, you're going to have 5G coverage or not. Now, your mileage will vary because there's a lot of marketing bullshit wrapped around 5G. Some 5G isn't really 5G, and there's different flavors and speeds of 5G. Generally, if you had bad cell connections before, 5G is probably not going to change it much. So for someone in Ashland, Oregon, not sure it's going to help you much. Now, the good news is that 5G, it might help with pricing, because 5G speeds are now going to compete with cable speeds. So, Comcast now has competition for cable from the wireless companies, and that can only help to push pricing down, I hope. And it certainly will give people more choices. What I'm most interested in, and I think is the big accelerator, is what Elon Musk and others are doing with satellite networks. These will be complementary to the 5G networks that we're building. These are going to be going up. They started now. Early trials are happening, getting about 100 megabits a second, which is decent from a satellite network. And they'll be building out throughout this decade. So you've got SpaceX with their program. You've got Blue Origin from Bezos with their Project Kuiper, LeoSat. There's a whole bunch of companies, probably about 7 in this space, building out high-speed satellite networks. So you'll be able to put a dish outside and get access to high-speed internet pretty much anywhere. So what that means is, for people who are in rural environments, they no longer have to leave to go to the big city to have a career. They'll be able to work from those places and be spending dollars in those local communities. It also means people who are sick and tired of working in places like maybe New York, where there's bad traffic or it's just too expensive, or certainly the Bay Area, if they don't need to be physically there, why can't they move anywhere in the world and then spend those Silicon Valley dollars in those local rural communities based on quality of life is why they would choose it. So a lot of companies are wrestling with this right now. And as they look at how the technology will roll out over the next 5 years and the flexibility that gives them, yeah, they're thinking, well, maybe I don't need to spend as much on real estate and I can make my offices smaller. But that's really not the reason to do this. The real reason is to get access to global talent. So rather than look at the people who are willing to move to your town or city, and the people who are in a catchment area that are willing to spend 30, 40, maybe up to an hour in commute time each way, now you can have talent anywhere on the planet. That's what makes it attractive. And you're going to see the global talent marketplace really shift as a result.
Very interesting. What about, so just to summarize that, by 2025, the shift will have happened. Do you think we will see some meaningful changes throughout 2021? Or do you think it's going to take 2022, 2023 until we'll really see this come into an obvious value proposition?
For the satellite network stuff, first trials are happening now. For a ridiculous amount of money, you can get on the beta test for these things. I think realistically, you're looking at a couple of years until the network is built out and there are enough satellites. The way it works is, it's not like the old satellite networks used to be, where the satellites are in geostationary orbit, which means they're very high up and they're falling at the same rate they're spinning, so they stay over the top of the same point of Earth. These are low Earth orbit satellites, which means they're constantly moving around the Earth. And so for a signal to go from one place to another, it has to go up to a satellite, get bounced through other satellites in the network, and then down to another ground station. The network, as they put more satellites up, will be able to handle more capacity, have more coverage, and just generally be better, certainly more resilient. So that process is probably going to take a good 5 years, I would think, until we're really good. But we're moving to an era where within 5 to max 10 years, you will be able to connect everything and everyone everywhere on Earth. That's a big
Wow.
breakthrough, because now you're talking about access to the next 4 billion customers coming online in the world, and being able to connect every object, every piece of infrastructure, and have that also be online with this concept of the Internet of Things.
That's mind-boggling. All right. What about autonomous cars? And when will we see meaningful impact, and how that would impact real estate markets? Like if I'm a real estate agent and I am thinking about, like I talked to a top producer in Chicago, and they're
Yeah.
like, I more and more need to get licensed in other places because I need to help my lifetime clients. They're either buying second homes or they're transitioning out, and I want to benefit from that. When will autonomous cars really be a market mover?
Um, so Loop Ventures is the one that seems to have the best data projections on this. LOUP Ventures. They're projecting that, within the 2030 or so timeframe, that's when the price difference between an autonomous car and, let's call it, a stupid car, dumb car that can't drive itself, that price differential comes down to, that's $1,000 or so. And then it becomes a no-brainer. Why would I ever buy a dumb car when I can buy a smart car? And so at that point, they see the transition flipping over, so that by 2040, most cars that are on the road are fully autonomous. And at that point, that's when you really start to change the dynamic, because maybe I'm willing to commute a little longer if I can sit in the back of the car and sleep or watch TV or do some work while I'm on my commute. So that's really the time frame, is 2030, when I think things start to kick off and ramp up. We will see shared vehicles that happen before then. So robo-taxi services, my guess we'll start to see those come on board, 2023, 2024 timeframe, maybe earlier. I think COVID pushed those out a little bit because people aren't super comfy being in shared spaces these days. But I think that's where you'll start to see them show up. And then when people will own them and have them as their primary form of transport, that happens through the 2030s. I can't hear you, Dave. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So we got a decade to wait for any real impact in the real estate markets from autonomous cars.
You'll see some, but not broad.
Yeah, but
scale.
it's not changing markets. It's not opening neighborhoods. Developers aren't, building to that. And I'm really just trying to look out for the interest of mortgage professionals, real estate agents, housing, and when do we really need to start executing and thinking about that? But got it.
But
Anything else?
the one to watch though is autonomous cars are a big deal, but watch for passenger drones as well. There are over 100 companies creating electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, some of which will also be fully autonomous. So you'll be able to take little hops and get through nasty traffic and get to an out of town hub and then continue your journey on from there. That's a really compelling way of changing the transport network to make it more efficient by putting in these different, so the same way we've, for the last mile, people have got these little scooters to get them where they want to go. There's another component of the transportation network, which will be these vertical takeoff and landing. If you think about when you're in New York and you're in Manhattan and you need to get to one of the airports, it's a real bitch to get out there. So being able to get one of these vertical takeoff and landing, straight over traffic, drop you off, and off you go to your airport.
Like what? Like within 10 years or faster?
I mean, trials are already occurring now. A lot of it's going to be down to regulation. Same with autonomous vehicles. But yeah, I would certainly think within this decade. And Uber is pushing hard here, and with their Uber Air effort.
Wow.
So they're talking about 2025 or even sooner to start services.
That's
But I mean, who knows? All bets are off with pandemic, and it's changing everything.
No doubt. So it looks like we've got a couple other mortgage innovators. We've got Brian Covey watching us right now. We've got Alec Hansen. got some very smart, innovative leaders listening in on this conversation right now. Guys, if you have a question for Futurist Steve Brown,
Yeah, love to hear them.
author of the, show him your book real quick, because anytime I have you on here, I always want to help get
There
more
you go.
mortgage peoples buying that book. The
Innovation
Innovator's
Ultimatum.
Ultimate. It's awesome, guys. I mean, it's a must-have for every innovator. If you know an innovative real estate agent, get it for them. Buy a case of these things. If people wanted to buy a box of these and hand them out for Christmas gifts, how would they do that?
I can, if you want to buy enough of them, and enough is like 50 plus, you can drop me an email and I'll hook you up with a deal with the publisher. You just got to, actually just got to Porchlight Books. They'll hook you up with a volume deal. You just, typically it's like 30% off the cover price. Although Amazon just dropped their price last week. So the Amazon price is actually a pretty good deal these days. So
What is the Amazon Prime? What is the Amazon price?
It's like 18, no, it's 17, 18, 19 bucks in that realm, something like that. Cover price, list price is 28 because it's, a beautiful hardback book made by Wiley and they like to make it a beautiful product.
Well, it's a beautiful product. It's an incredible book. It's every innovator needs to have it. So let's wrap this up because I want to honor your time. Anything else? If you're a real estate agent, you're a local referral-based mortgage professional, and you want to be an innovator, you want to go where the puck is going. Anything else we should be thinking about right now?
I think let me answer the question more broadly, which is for every industry that I work with the mortgage industry, I work with many other industries, manufacturing, retail, entertainment, lots of different industries. The same thing is true in all of them, which is that there's always been a gap between companies that embrace technology to drive innovation into their business and the way they operate, the way they serve customers, and those that don't, or that are laggards. As I look forward, the next realm of technologies, spatial computing technologies, so this is building on the mobile cloud technology era, these are going to significantly widen that gap between those who embrace technology and those who don't. So my advice to people who are wondering, okay, well, what do I do? Is you all need to boost your technology acumen, not to understand how all this technology works and the bits and bytes of it. How does AI work or blockchain technology? Leave that to the nerds like me. But what you do need to understand is what business problems can these technologies solve? How do they apply to your business? And empower yourself to ask the right questions. It's always what it comes down to. As an innovator, you need to, because you're not going to build these technologies yourselves unless you suddenly have a degree in coding computers. You are going to push your suppliers to give you the capabilities that you need to serve your customers better, to do create digital mortgages. Ultimately, that's where we're headed, right? So empower yourself with the knowledge to know what questions to ask your employers, or if you're big enough to have an IT person or IT team, what questions to ask them, so that you're pushing them to keep you out front and deliver you the business capabilities you need to remain competitive. That's why I wrote the book, to empower people like you to ask the right questions.
Well, here's how I want to close this out, guys. So I got some new stats on how many loans America's top 1% loan officers closed this year, 2020. And in 2018, if you were one of the 1% most successful loan officers in America, you closed about 150 loans, give or take 10 or 15 loans. This year, the top 1% of loan officers have already closed 300 loans. So the 1% have, we're talking November, they still have 2 more months to go. And they've already done double what they did then. And here's another stat, guys, that there are still 167,000 loan officers in America that have done less than 30 loans. So think about that. Top 1%'s done more than 300. 45% of loan officers, 167, have done less than 10% of the top 1%. There are 35,000 loan officers in America, which make up about the top 10%, that have already done over 100 loans. So what that tells me is that the most successful, the most efficient, the loan officers that are using technology, the loan officers that are good leaders and are building teams, and the loan officers that are building better processes are killing it. I mean, they're just gaining market share, getting more and more business. And I think that will accelerate. So in 2 years, you've seen a massive acceleration in people that use technology, that are good leaders, that have just separated themselves. I don't know, Steve, do you think that that will continue to accelerate?
I do. And I think what you're seeing is the beginning. I mean, it's a very fragmented industry in the United States, the mortgage industry. I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation where small players are going to need to link up with other small players to form, bigger groups so that they are able to make the investments they need to make to embrace these technologies, streamline their businesses, elevate their employees, improve their offering, all the things I talked about before, and make themselves more competitive. Because not only do you have to worry about, Amazon mortgage coming, which we've been talking about for years now, but what happens when, your biggest competitor joins with your next two other biggest competitors and becomes a giant, and then they can invest in a way that you can't. So I think we're about to see a period of some consolidation in the sector. And if you're not thinking about that already and how you play in that space so that you can become one of these big producers, you need to be thinking about that now.
So I did get a couple of questions that came in on Facebook and couldn't agree more. Although the only message I'd say to that is I do believe that of all the fintech players, the level of technology that the mortgage space has, it's better. I mean, our point of sale experience, here's a link, family can fill it out on their mobile app. It's not quite a Rocket Mortgage and you're approved and it's done, but it's a pretty great point of sale experience where big data, AI is making it more efficient. You get a link for the advice. Guys, the financial service business, the insurance agents, they don't have a mortgage coach TCA. We have the most advanced fintech advice platform of any fintech player. So that's the thing. If you're an individual loan officer, you can sign up and use a mortgage coach. So I agree with you that there will be consolidation, but I also think that the mortgage industry has access to technology beyond a lot of other fintech players. Steve, before I do this question from the audience, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a nice thing about software as a service, a SaaS product, is that it makes it easier for smaller companies to have access to big levels of innovation. And so long as innovators are looking at building platforms that everybody can play in, and that is serving the needs of the market, then it may keep it from consolidating. But if there is some breakaway capability that is delivered that like Rocket Mortgage, for example, that built a bunch of back-end stuff, if somebody innovates at that level, that's what you have to worry about. So I think for now, I agree with you, you're right. But there's that worry that somebody's going to build some kind of digital capability that is not delivered as a platform that everybody can play with to level the playing field, and then you need to have scale.
Yeah, and I do think that's a real threat. I mean, Rocket, when we talked last time, Rocket wasn't public. They're public now. Mm-hmm. Zillow's in the mortgage space. It's a question of when does Amazon get in? Right. And I would my advice to local referral-based players, all you can control is what you can control. And if you've got a great CRM and you're using it hourly and you're building database so that you can take action on it, you're doing everything you can. If you're using Mortgage Coach to deliver advice, wow, experiences for people, you're doing everything you can. So Timothy, thank you for your question. Where are we headed in the mortgage business? I think we kind of already answered that. Timothy, if you want to ask us, a more specific question, we'll try to get to it before we end. And then Scott Fauser, who's the leader of a really interesting company called House Happy, which is an innovator in how you manage your home. Like they're automating, they're kind of a technology enabled service platform so that you might access it with a website and then manage everything that has to do with your home. He asked, beyond the geographic flexibility that has been created with tech advances, what do you see for the future of home ownership, how they look at their largest investment? Any shifts or changes there?
Fine question. I mean, you have in theory, there was talk 5 years ago about the end of ownership, right? That millennials were all about experiences and not ownership, and that it was all about services and monthly payments and not owning objects. And then guess what? Millennials had kids, and suddenly they needed a place to put those kids, and they wanted that stability that their parents had with owning property. And I think it is still seen as a way to accrue wealth. I think it's still aspirational to own a property rather than to rent. There are some people looking for that flexibility. With the rise of anywhere workers, it will be interesting to see whether they, as well as having the flexibility to work anywhere, also embrace that flexibility of moving from ownership to renting. I think it's too early to call on that front, but I've not seen any strong moves either away from ownership towards renting or the other way around. Right now, I think it's too early to call.
Well, my only 2 cents on that, and I'd love to know what you think about it, is there's a term I've heard called house hacking. And the way I understand it is where you're seeing, primarily millennials team up and, work together to buy a house and augment with Airbnb or some type of app enabled rent out space in your home. So I don't know exactly what the definition of house hacking is, but I've heard that term multiple times. So
Yeah,
Scott,
having an ADU you can rent out,
yeah.
so that you can help to pay for the mortgage is a smart move. And I think that people are looking for more of those types of units that have that flexibility.
And here's another question that just came in from Timothy. He said, loves Mortgage Coach. Thank you, Timothy. What other technologies can individuals should be using? And this one I can answer 2 questions. So I'm a huge fan of HomeBot and House Happy. So I would say when you're comes to building clients for life, Mortgage Coach, point of sale advice, and do an annual review. House Happy, put them into House Happy, and you're helping them through technology more efficiently manage their home and all the improvements that need to be done. And then HomeBot. HomeBot is super cool, great platform. And one of the things that it does is it's giving a family every month kind of more than a Zillow review on their home. How's their home building in equity? But it also allows them to see, hey, what are rates today? And should I refinance? And if they say, I want to get information, it integrates with Mortgage Coach. But it also shows people what Airbnb, like how much they could rent out a room in their house for. So literally HomeBot helps them look at how to optimize the investment in your home, technology enabled client for life platform. So Timothy, that would be my suggestion. Check out House Happy, check out HomeBot. If anybody else is listening to this and you have another suggestion, put it in chat. If no more last minute questions come in, I'm going to go into wrap up mode. Real quick, tell people how they get in touch with you, because I want to close out on, I think the most sure way for mortgage companies, whether you're a branch or a big company, to differentiate is to help your sales force make the digital shift. Like get to the point where they're using their technology better than ever. I think you called it, how do you elevate your employees? I would say, how do you elevate your sales force to be a modern mortgage professional? Or Glenn Bill, how do you elevate everybody in your office to be a modern real estate professional? And I think part of that is you hire Mr. Scott Brown here to speak at your next event and tell where the world is going, talk about how the best companies are. But how can people get a hold of you if they want you to speak at a virtual event? And then any other like little last minute, 1 minute on ideas on how to elevate your folks to kill it in the future.
So the way to find me, I have no hair, easy to remember, baldfuturist.com. Or you can email me direct at steve@baldfuturist.com. I'm glad to hear from you. So what I'd leave you with is we are moving to the next era of work. And we started in the physical era where most of us worked the land. Maybe a few people were cartwrights or blacksmiths or something, but most people worked the land. Along came the Industrial Revolution.
Wait, time out. When you said cartwrights, were you doing a little play on Bonanza? Like the cartwrights? Oh, okay. I didn't know what okay. Yeah, I was thinking like they were just landowners. Okay, I just wanted to see if you were having a little bald futurist humor there. So keep going.
So physical work, with the coming of the Industrial Revolution, we created mechanical muscles, which allowed us to move people into factories and offices. And we moved into the knowledge era, where you're not measured on your strength and stamina and technique, but you're measured on what you know, your experience, your network, and so on. Your ability to solve problems and get information. With the coming of AI, we are creating not mechanical muscles now, we're creating mechanical minds. And that is going to push more people into the next era of work, which I believe, and many other futurists believe, is the augmented era of work, where tools are no longer something like a hammer where you pick it up, bang it down, and put it down. Now you are creating tools which feel more like teammates, more like co-workers, that partner with us, augment our capabilities, and help us to be better. And that could be augmenting our senses, augmenting our intuition, augmenting our creativity. This is a lot of stuff I talk about in the book, but really augmenting our abilities, augmenting our decision-making processes. So there's a lot talked about, using technology to automate things, to automate away the humans to reduce cost. In some small businesses, yes, that's going to be the case. Certainly, if you're a truck driver, that's not a long-term career prospect, I think, 20 years from now. But for most people, the way technology will come into our lives is to support us, as I said before, to elevate our talents, to help us see more, to be more intuitive. Companies like First.io that are First.ai that are looking at a real estate agent's Rolodex and making accurate predictions about when former clients will be in the market for a loan, for a new mortgage, to move house. So you can target your marketing activities. That's boosting your intuition. So there are these types of technologies that will continue to improve, that will augment our capabilities. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying elevate talent to help you make your sales team the very best sales team they can by helping them to have much better relationships. Another example would be a company called Cyrano.ai, as in Cyrano de Bergerac. And it listens into a Zoom call like we're having right now. And then it gives you an email that, because it listens into the conversation and tells you how you could do better with that, based on the conversation you had, how you could do better to close the conversation next time you talk with them. This is where technology is going. That's why I say you need to be asking the right questions by understanding what capabilities technology has today and next year.
Wow, I love that. You also made me think of another technology, sales boomerang. Check that out, Timothy. I don't know, I think you called it First.ai. Was that the name of the website? I don't know what they do. So I'm not saying it does what they do or it's better, but in the mortgage space, they have all the data and they're letting you know which consumers are likely to be selling, buying, in the money to refinance. So they have all kinds of alerts. And I'm totally with you. The augmented, when it comes to the mortgage professional, using your CRM, using your mobile device, using Mortgage Coach, using all these technologies to just be a better you. And we always talk about there are some things that are automated. One of our partners, Total Expert, does a great job of automating an annual review so that it just goes out. And then there's an alert in our product, and then the loan officer can augment it and use what they know about the family, what they know about the market, and they can augment it. So kind of automation and augmentation, I definitely think is on point for mortgage and real estate. So guys, we're going to wrap this up. I think, Steve, we plan to go for 20 minutes, and I think we went like
we got
40.
into it a bit. Yeah.
I know we did get into it, but thank you for your time, brother. I so appreciate you. I hope to see you on virtual stages, and I hope to share a real stage with you next year. I'm going to put that on my bucket list. Guys, if you got value from this, give it a like, share it with your mortgage friends. For those of you that work for bigger companies, this is a call that you should share with your management team and even advocate that they bring in Steve and have him speak at one of your upcoming events, whether it's in person or virtual. Take care, everybody. This call is a wrap.